Listen up, you donkey. Butchery isn't about hacking and slashing. It's about respect for the animal and getting the best out of the meat. A well-butchered goat means tender, flavorful dishes. Screw it up and you'll be chewing on leather. We're going for perfection, yeah? So pay attention. First things first. Sharp knives are your best friend. Dull knives? They're a recipe for disaster, more likely to slip and cause an accident. You need the right tools for the job, so don't even think about using that rusty old thing you found in the back of the drawer. Hygiene is crucial. We're dealing with raw meat here, and you don't want to be serving up a side of food poisoning. Keep your work area clean, wash your hands thoroughly, and sanitize your tools. This isn't a bloody free-for-all, it's about precision and cleanliness. Finally, take your time. Butchery isn't a race. Rushing will only lead to mistakes and could ruin the meat. Be patient, be precise, and you'll be rewarded with beautiful cuts of meat. Now, are you ready to learn how to butcher a bloody goat or what? Right, before we get our hands dirty, let's talk tools. You wouldn't believe the rubbish some people try to butcher with. Get the right gear and the job becomes a whole lot easier. First up, you need a boning knife. This little beauty is your go-to for getting around bones and separating joints. Look for a blade that's about 5 to 6 inches long, nice and flexible. Next, a good butcher knife is essential. This is your workhorse, the one you'll use for the bigger cuts. Go for a blade that's 8 to 10 inches long, sturdy and sharp. A sharpening steel is non-negotiable. Keep those knives razor sharp throughout the process. A dull knife is a dangerous knife, and we don't want any accidents in this kitchen. And finally, you'll need a good saw for getting through those bones. A hacksaw or a meat saw will do the trick. Make sure it's clean and sharp. We don't want any bone fragments in our meat. All right, you've got your tools. You're feeling confident. Now let's get down to business. The first step is prepping the carcass. This is about getting it ready for butchering, and it's crucial for hygiene and ease of cutting. First, make sure the goat has been properly bled. This is usually done by the slaughterhouse, but it's always good to check. A properly bled carcass will have light-colored flesh and minimal blood in the veins. Next, give the carcass a good rinse under cold water. This will remove any dirt, debris, or loose hairs. Remember, hygiene is key. We don't want any nasty surprises in our finished product. Now, you'll want to remove the head. This is best done with a sharp butcher knife. Locate the joint where the skull meets the spine and make a clean cut through. Once the head is removed, you can remove the feet. Use your butcher knife to cut through the joint just above the hoof. And there you have it, a prepped and ready to butcher goat carcass. Section 4, Skinning the Goat, a Skillful Approach. Skinning a goat might seem daunting, but it's all about knowing where to start and being gentle. You're not trying to rip the skin off, you're carefully separating it from the meat. Start by making a small incision near the hock of one of the hind legs. Be careful not to cut too deep, you don't want to puncture the muscle. Now work your fingers between the skin and the meat, carefully separating them as you go. You can use your boning knife to help loosen the skin, but be careful not to score the meat. Continue working your way down the leg, peeling the skin back as you go. Once you reach the belly, you can either continue skinning the rest of the carcass by hand or hang it up and use gravity to help you. Remember, patience is key here. Take your time, work slowly and carefully, and you'll have that skin off in no time. Section 5, Breaking Down the Beast, Quartering the Goat. All right, the skin's off. Now it's time to break down this goat into manageable pieces. We call this quartering, and it's exactly what it sounds like, dividing the carcass into 4 quarters. First, locate the breastbone, that long bone that runs down the center of the chest. Using your butcher knife, cut along one side of the breastbone, separating the ribs. Now flip the carcass over and repeat on the other side. You should now have the rib cage separated from the rest of the carcass. Next, locate the point where the spine connects to the pelvis. This is where you'll make your next cut, separating the hindquarters from the forequarters. Repeat on the other side, and there you have it. 4 quarters of goat, ready for further butchering. Section 6, from quarters to cut shoulders, legs, and all the good stuff. We've got our quarters, now let's break them down into those beautiful cuts of meat you see at the butcher shop. Don't worry, it's easier than it looks. Let's start with the forequarters. First, locate the shoulder blade. It's a large triangular bone that sits on top of the rib cage. Use your boning knife to carefully separate the shoulder from the rib cage. Next, separate the leg from the hindquarter. Find the joint where the femur or thigh bone connects to the pelvis and cut through it with your butcher knife. Now you can further break down these primal cuts into smaller pieces. The shoulder can be left whole or cut into roasts, steaks, or stew meat. The leg can be roasted whole, or you can separate the shank, sirloin, and leg of lamb. The rib cage can be cut into ribs, or you can remove the rack of ribs for roasting. And don't forget about the loin, which runs along either side of the spine. This is where you'll find tender cuts, like the tenderloin and strip steak. Section 7. Trimming and portioning, final touches for flavor. All right, you've broken down the goat into those prime cuts. Now it's time for the final touches, trimming and portioning. This is where you add your personal touch, deciding how much fat to leave on and what size cuts you prefer. Start by trimming away any excess fat. Some fat is good for flavor and moisture, but too much can make your meat greasy. Use your boning knife to carefully remove any large chunks of fat. Next, you can portion your meat into desired sizes. This will depend on how you plan to cook it. Roasts can be left whole or cut into smaller pieces. Steak should be cut about 1 inch thick, and stew meat should be cut into bite-sized cubes. Once your meat is trimmed and portioned, it's ready to be wrapped and stored. Wrap each piece tightly in plastic wrap, then again in butcher paper. This will help prevent freezer burn. Store your meat in the coldest part of your refrigerator for up to 3 days or freeze for longer storage.